Let me call you sweetheart. I'm in love with you.
Welcome to the B-List,
where we talk about everything we love to hate
and everything that we hate to love.
I'm Tara.
I'm Courtney.
And today...
What are we talking about today?
Today, we are discussing disappearances.
Disappearances.
Which drive me insane and keep me up at night.
Yeah. It amazes me how these people can just, like, disappear without a trace. And these are people, the ones that I had picked today are people that were never found.
I think, two of mine were never found.
Two of them were never found?
Yeah. It's just... It amazes me, especially like when it's a current thing where like there's cameras everywhere and GPS and phones and technology and people can just disappear. Like olden days, I'm sure you could just do it like
right. A couple of mine,
like you're just out there.
A couple of mine are from the olden days, but I've got one that's a little,
but like with no trace,
but no trace. Yeah,
no, nothing. And every once in a while you'll read about someone who like they disappeared on purpose and then they come back and they're like, hey. Like, wait a minute. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So we're going to talk about our disappearances today. Do you want to kick us off or should I get going?
I'll get us started.
Alrighty.
Okay, this one is one that's near and dear to my heart. I've been obsessed with this since I saw the episode of Disappeared like a billion years ago about this kid, Bryce Lespisa. Do you know this one?
That was in California, wasn't it?
The ginger kid.
Okay, yeah, I kind of remember that one.
He was like real tall, ginger, has nice smile, blue eyes, like, and that's the thing, like, you would know him if you saw him somewhere.
Yeah.
He's got hair like brighter than like it is red. This is August 28th, 2013, so not that long ago.
No.
And he was 19 years old. He was living the college life in Northern California. He'd only been back at college for 2 weeks. It was like the second year of college. He'd only been back for a couple weeks. He'd just spent the summer at home. As far as everyone knew, everything's cool. His parents got some troubling phone calls from his roommate that was like, he's acting kind of strange. Like, and I was thinking, like, I was listening to a podcast about it, and it's gotta be bad for someone to call your parents, when you're like 19.
Yeah.
You gotta be acting real weird.
Yeah.
Your parents do. Like, he'd been staying up all night and abusing Vyvanse.
Oh, yeah.
And apparently he was drinking like a lot. Like,
yeah, but that's not normal. That's not
straight liquor, though.
Well, that's not uncommon though for college kids. Whenever they don't know their limits yet or anything like that. But still, it sounds like he's getting in pretty deep.
And yeah, his girlfriend had called and been like, he's acting kind of strange. And his mom talked to him, and he's like, I have something that I need to tell you. I'll tell you when I see you. And so that just like haunts them because like, what was it that he had to say? There's so many rabbit holes you could jump down. But he decided that he was going to drive home, and the next morning around 9 a.m. they get a call from their insurance company, the parents do, saying that Bryce's car needed roadside assistance. And because it had run out of gas near Buttonwillow, which is 200 miles outside their house, or where they live in Laguna Niguel. And so they call, and he's like, yeah, I needed gas. It's, everything's fine. So it's 9 a.m. Okay. Fast forward 13 hours.
And he's only 200 miles away at that point, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Fast forward 13 hours. They're getting nervous because it's only an 8-hour drive from his school to their house. They get Christian, the patron saint of roadside assistance, Christian Tire and Truck. This guy, I've never seen him being interviewed anywhere, but he's the guy who brought him gas. Like, roadside assistance called this guy at Christian Tire and Trucks and brought gas. Yeah. So they're like, this is the only way we can find our son. I don't know. There's something creepy about it. I don't know what's happening with these parents. I would get in my car and go, I'm picking your ass up off the side of the road.
No kidding.
And he goes out there, and he's still there in the exact same location.
Okay, he never started his car and tried to go.
13 hours later, he's in the same spot.
But he's alive.
He's alive. He's fine.
Okay.
And Christian's like, you need to talk to your mom. And, the police come out there, and they're like, what's happening? He's like, oh, I'm just blowing off steam.
For 13 hours.
And the police are like, they do field sobriety. He's sober. He's not drunk. breathalyzer, everything is normal. And so they're like, you need to talk to your mother. And he's like, can you talk to her for me? Like, he does not want to talk to his parents.
Okay.
Finally, they make him, like, you need to talk to your parents.
Well, yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I'm on my way. I'm fine. And his parents are like, what are you doing? And they're like, I'm just blowing off steam. I would be like,
get your ass home.
I would tell the police officers, put him in custody. Keep him.
Keep him, yeah.
Him. Christian, take him to your house. And so Christian helped him get onto the highway. So he's like helping him get onto the highway, following him or whatever, follows him for a few miles, and then Christian turns and goes home. And they keep texting him, where are you? Are you getting close? Like, talking to him on the phone. And they last heard from him around 2 a.m. the following morning, because it's already been. And he said he was too tired to drive and that he was going to sleep on the side of the road. At that point, he's probably, so weird. Like 50, 80 miles from home?
Yeah, like, just do it. You're only, an hour or two?
And again, if you're too tired, park your ass right there. I'm coming to get you.
Yeah, I'll be there in a minute. I'll be there as soon as I can.
Because one of the podcasts I listened to, Sinisterhood, they're here from Texas. And they're like, it would be the same, like the drive to Buttonwell, it would be the same from like here to Austin. It's like 3 hours.
Okay, yeah. We go down there all the time.
Why would you not get in your car and go get your child?
No kidding.
And if I were the child, my parents for sure would be like, sit there, I'm coming to get you.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with all of you, but I'm coming to get you right now. Yeah. And so the next morning around 8 a.m., authorities come to the door. They think that it's Bryce. Someone knocks on the door. They think it's Bryce. I don't know why they thought their kid would knock on the door. But they go answer the door, and it's the police, and they say that they have found Bryce's car in Passaic Lake crashed.
Okay.
Like, off a cliff, crashed. And they had surveillance cameras at the lake, like, towards the entrance or something, and they can see him. He's, like, circling. He's, like, circling the area.
Okay.
And so what they think's happened, they don't know if he did it on purpose or accidentally, or if he was trying to end his life or what happened. But apparently where you're driving at this space, like, it looks like a cliff, and you're going to, like, go off some cliff, but it's not that steep of a cliff.
Okay.
So he, like, then there was no sign of, like, brakes where he had tried to brake. He just accelerated. He didn't land in the lake. He landed on the ground. And the car was all smashed up. There was very little blood, and he was gone. His stuff was there. His bag was there. His wallet, everything's there, and he was gone.
Okay.
And they found, I think they got, like, some police puppers to come and, like, sniff around and see what they could find, and they followed it to a truck stop, and then nothing. So.
That's so weird.
And no one has seen him again.
Did he, I mean, obviously he might have been suicidal. Might have been.
Well, we don't know. It came out that, like, the rumor is that he was really abusing, obviously, Vyvanse and alcohol, and that he and his parents did not get along. If you see any interviews of those pieces, they're like, he could have come to us with any news. We were fine. Everything was perfect. But, you know, everyone puts that facade out that, like, families are perfect.
Well, yeah.
And apparently he had some issues with, like, drug abuse in the past. And so, like, I don't know if that's what he was going to tell his mom, or...
Yeah, that he's in trouble
drop
again.
Out of school, like, maybe, I don't know what they thought, but, like, he just disappeared.
That's so weird. I mean, did he go to start a new life?
And they're thinking, like, did he hit his head and, like, he doesn't remember who he is? But, like, with that face and that red hair, someone would know someone would know him.
You would think. That's such a strange case. I remember reading about that case before.
I'm just, like, upset. What is happening?
Where did you
Where
go?
are you? If you're there, but maybe, like, maybe the police have found him, and they are under no obligation. If you're over 18, they don't have to tell anybody where you are. Right. But I think they should have to tell the parents, we found him.
We found him. Yeah.
He doesn't want to talk to you.
Yeah. But why wouldn't he tell the cops that, too? Is like, I just don't need... I'm trying not to talk to them right now. Or
I don't know. It's really weird.
That is strange.
And especially because, like, my son's almost 19.
Yeah, he's that same age.
Cameron, never run away. I'm putting it on the podcast.
Don't
Come home and we'll yell about it. We'll be fine.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Well, the one that I was going to talk about first, too, this is a Texas girl. And I remember this happening because I was about 12 or 13 at the time, and this girl, her name was Kelly Day Wilson, and I've listened to her story a couple of times on a couple of podcasts. I think that there's a couple of little short documentary, episodes about it. But I remember this happening in real time back in the day. She's been missing since January 5th 1992, and she was only 17 years old. So that's why it kind of stuck out in my head, because she was not that much older than me. You know,
Yeah.
she
And teenagers don't know how to disappear themselves on purpose.
Right.
They don't know how to do that
absolutely,
successfully, you know?
yeah. And she, like I said, she was 17 years old. She's from Gilmer, Texas, which is it's a town of less than like 5,000 people. So
It
it's
sounds
not
like a small town.
it's not that big of a town. And she worked at a Northeast Texas Video. I think that's what the store was called, was Northeast Texas Video.
Oh, an OG Blockbuster.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like Blazing Video was for me, and
Movies Unlimited in my
Movies
town,
Unlimited
yeah.
in your town. She worked her shift the night of January 5th with her boss, Joe Henry, until 8:30 when they closed. They both closed up shop at the same time, and Joe went to his car, she went to her car. They visited for a minute, you know, before they went their separate ways. And it was her turn to take the deposit to the bank. You know how that is, especially when we worked at the last salon we worked at together. We'd all take turns going to just drop it in the thing.
Yeah.
And I always thought, if somebody was waiting for me here at the deposit, you know, what would I do? I always thought that, going around the corner to the deposit box.
Because we're creatures of habit, and you're doing the same thing every time, you know?
So she goes off to drop off the deposit, and the bank surveillance footage shows her 85 Dodge Charger go through the drive-thru, make the deposit, and that was the last anybody had seen. So they couldn't positively ID her because they couldn't see her in the car. They just saw her car.
And the deposit was made.
And the deposit was made. So it's very unlikely that somebody would nab her
you and
then go take the deposit.
Oh, you gotta take the deposit?
Oh, yeah. Well, we don't want you to get in trouble. So
I don't want you to go to jail for $500 worth of video rentals.
Right. So they couldn't get a positive ID, and it was definitely her car. And then when she didn't come home, like at 5 a.m.,
Yeah.
she got off work at 8:30 p.m. She didn't come back home, so they thought maybe she went out with friends and didn't tell us or forgot to tell us. But whenever it came around 5 a.m., now this is before cell phones, like I said, it was 1992, he goes up to the video store and finds her car still at the video store. After her boss said, no, she went off to the bank. We have video of her at the bank. So he found her car there, and it was unlocked, and the left rear tire was slashed. But her purse and all of her belongings were inside, but the keys were missing. So Joe Henry, her boss, was the last person to see her alive.
So obviously he's the first person
And so
of
he's the
interest.
first person of interest. He said that they closed, they walked out to their cars together, they said goodbye, they left. He had a solid alibi afterwards, and he passed a lie detector test. Now I know that lie detector tests are, you know,
Trash.
but he was never named a suspect because of this. So there was a boy that was caught in the area named Michael Bibby or Michael Bibby, something like that.
That is hilarious because my sister and I grew up with a kid named Michael Bybee.
Well, was it spelled that way? B-I-B-Y?
Wait,
Looks like baby with an I.
no, it's not that.
Oh, okay. So maybe that's not how you say his name.
No.
But he was another 17-year-old that was a classmate of hers.
Okay, no. In 92, I think Michael Bybee was like 5.
Yeah, right. So he was a classmate of Kelly's. And he had been caught in the area slashing tires. So, of course, he's the next one that they question.
Get a hobby.
Get a hobby. Well, it is, slashing tires.
That's not a good hobby.
But they didn't really have any evidence against him except for the fact that he was caught slashing other tires. So he was kind of cut out of the suspect line.
Could you imagine even being the one who like slashes her tires, but like...
They don't even know if it was slashed by the kidnapper.
Yeah.
Or not. They just...
Like, some dumb kid just sees a car and slashes the tires and doesn't realize, like, oh no, this is a crime scene? And
right.
You're a part of it.
Now you're a part of it.
That's what you get for slashing tires.
What they think that might have happened is that her tire was already slashed. She went to the bank because the bank apparently was just around the corner. She went to the bank. She was like, "Oh, my tire's low. I'm gonna go back to work and park because I'm supposedly safe. I know the area."
Yeah, you can like unlock, go in, call somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, I would do the same thing.
Yeah, that's what they thought had happened. But Michael Bybee was never charged. Christopher Denton, though, it was Kelly's on and off boyfriend. You know, sometimes
Got my eyes on you, on and off boyfriends.
Right. Apparently, they had an argument the night before her disappearance.
That's not to have an argument.
I know. He was known for having a temper. And he didn't have an alibi for that night. They couldn't prove his alibi. He didn't pass the lie detector test, but
Sir.
again, lie detector tests aren't always
Right.
admissible.
It's just a measure of stress. It's not necessarily a measure of telling the truth.
Yeah, it's not, it's not that, whatever you call it, scientific or whatever. But anyway, so before investigators could search his vehicle, he drives to Louisiana and sells it. And he sells it to a place that takes old cars and ships them. They ship them to Mexico. So it gets shipped off to Mexico. But investigators find it.
It's a bad look.
I know. Investigators find it, and they discovered that the floor mats were missing.
Sir.
And there were strands of hair found in his car, but they were dating on and off. So they knew that she had been in the car, but they didn't see any signs of violence. And those strands of hair, they can't say, oh, this was from, January 5th. It could have been in there for a year.
Can't, carbon date them.
Yeah, you can't really track hair like that. So he was never charged with it because they didn't find signs of violence. And he died of cancer back in 2004 and maintained that he was innocent till the day he died.
All right, still have my eye on him.
But yeah, he's another one that I think that they had something to do with it, because there was another suspect, which was Chris's cousin, Brian Ward. And Brian Ward told detectives that he worked on the day of Kelly's disappearance, and afterwards he spent the night cruising town with Chris, his cousin, her boyfriend.
So they could have been on it together.
So yeah, he spent the night cruising town with Chris in his pickup truck. And investigators found that whenever he went to his employer's place, his time card records proved that Brian Ward did not work that day. And his supervisor said he came to work and asked her to lie about an alibi because he and Chris had, quote, messed with Kelly 15 minutes before closing.
Nope, that's a bad...
Right? So I think that they were in this together.
Chris, no sir.
But despite his supervisor's testimony, her boss said, I don't remember them coming by. The store was empty when we closed.
So what I think could have happened is, her tire was slit because Jackass Magoo came by, accidentally slit her tire.
That was messed with Kelly.
Went to go drop off the deposit, came back to work. Maybe they saw her there and thought she was closing. Mm-hmm. And went in to mess with her.
Maybe. I couldn't find more details.
This is why I cannot stress this enough. We need surveillance cameras everywhere.
Everywhere.
Floodlights everywhere.
Everywhere.
Witnesses everywhere.
I know.
No one leave anyone alone ever.
Ever. Oh, and you remember whenever we had to work, when we were shorthanded at Smart Looks and we'd have to work by ourselves in that building?
You were there towards the sinking of that Titanic when you had to be there all day long by yourself.
Oh, that's awful. I knew I had to be there.
So creepy.
I had already left at that point, but good grief. I remember being there half the day when everybody had to go pick up their kids.
One employee there.
Yeah, especially as many times as we had gotten broken into.
On a busy street. No, that's not
so, investigators, they gave Brian Ward a polygraph test, and he failed it. And he was also charged with perjury for lying about his whereabouts on that night because he wasn't at work. Right. He had no proof that he was at work.
Right.
But they never charged him because they couldn't find any proof that he had done anything. So he was never charged. And so, like I said, the best they could come up with was she had a flat tire and went back to work, and something happened there because there were no surveillance, nothing. And in 2017, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released an age progression photo that I'll put up in the video, because she'd be around 47, 48 years old now. I mean, just a few years older than us. But the case went cold 30 years ago. There has been nothing since then. And I thought that, I remember a few years back they had found some missing girls' remains, I think down in Houston or around the area, and I thought, I think that was that girl, but no, it wasn't her. It was a different cold case that was that old. But yeah, the poor girls.
What do they say? The simplest explanation is usually what happened. So I think those boys did something.
I think the boys did something, and there might not have been violence.
And you know how pumped up teenage boys get when they're together.
Yeah.
Make the stupidest decisions. Not just boys, teenagers in general.
They probably went to go scare her and it got out of hand. It may not have gotten violent in the car that they were in, but I think that if it wasn't his
they checked his car. Did they check the other guy's car?
I don't think that they
Because-
checked the other guy's car. It didn't say that they checked the other guy's car.
And her keys weren't in the car because she probably used them to go in and call to tell someone that she had a flat tire.
Right, but nobody found the keys.
No one found the keys because she had them on her. Probably.
She probably had them on her.
And she didn't take her wallet or anything in there because she was just going in to make a phone call, you know?
Or they could have stopped by and said, hey, do you need a ride?
Yes.
Your car's down. She's like, yeah, I need a ride. She gets in the car without any struggle, without any violence.
Right.
She ends up missing somewhere. And they have no proof of where they took her.
I don't trust this.
So.
I don't trust that.
I don't trust it either.
Come on,
Poor girl.
Okay, my next one is in Quincy, Massachusetts. William Hurley. Quincy, Mass. is a suburb of Boston. This kid was living there with his girlfriend, Claire. He was like early 20s, I want to say. I didn't write down his age. October 8th, 2009. So again, not that long ago. He went to his first sports ball game. Hockey, I think. I'm like, I don't know, sports. With some friends, and after the first period, there you go, hockey. After the first period, he was tired, and he said he was tired and wanted to leave suddenly. Mm-hmm. And they're like, okay. But they're dudes, and so they're like, bye. Like,
yeah.
Women would be like, okay, well, let's get home. Like, you know, you leave. Always stay with your friends.
Always stay with your friends.
So he called his girlfriend, Claire, to come pick him up. And so this is like a busy area.
Mm-hmm.
It's a city. It's outside a stadium.
Right. They just had a sport.
And he couldn't tell her exactly where he was. He's like, I don't know where I am. And she hears someone walking by, or in a car or something, someone walking by say that they are on 99 Nashwood Street. And so he says, I'm on 99 Nashwood Street. Come get me. And his phone was at 1%. And so she's like, that's fine. Like, she was around the corner. She says, okay, I'll see you in a minute. And so she goes around the corner and she doesn't see him anywhere. She drove around looking and looking and looking. He's gone. So she goes home to think like, okay, I'm going to go home. Maybe he'll meet me there. Maybe he went back in with his friends. Like, you know, there's only so much you can do. So she goes to the authorities and she explains that she was a minute away and couldn't find him anywhere. And authorities looked in the area. They found his cell phone smashed to pieces. Not just like he dropped it. It was crushed. Yeah. They said that the phone had been run over because it wasn't just broken. It was like destroyed. And so there were texts to Claire, the girlfriend, complaining that some guy at the sports ball game was being annoying and agitating him. And so that's probably why he wanted to leave. There was someone in the stadium with him, like sitting around them, being agitating. And so October 14th, so fast forward, so October 8th is when he went missing, October 14th, so the next week, his body was found in Charles River, 25 feet from shore. He still had money in his wallet. There was no signs of foul play. Authorities said his body had only been there for a couple days. So he was somewhere else until then.
Yeah. Somebody brought it to him.
No physical injuries during the autopsy. They ruled it as a drowning. But I assume they can tell when someone drowns, though, right? Like, you can see if there's water in their lungs.
Yeah.
I don't know. They didn't say. There's a theory that his deaths is one of many from the Smiley face killer. Because, you know, the Smiley face killer was murdering, like, young college-age men near bodies of water.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. They found a date rape drug in his system, though.
Okay. I wonder when they could have got that in him.
The theory is that he was sitting with his friends at this sports balls game, and the annoying guy next to him drugged him. And then gave the wrong address so he could take him.
Was there any sort of video, or did they never showed him up in the stands or anything like that?
No, I guess I never looked. I don't know. I didn't hear anything about that. But yeah, but the theory is that whoever the annoying guy was may have been the one. Because that would have had to been the guy, unless his friends drugged him. I don't know why your friends would drug you at a hockey game.
Right.
But if he's like seeing someone that like, oh, I want to nab that guy, let me just be annoying and break something in your beer or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, like,
get you to try to ignore me and then that's nuts.
Yes.
That's really scary.
Yes. But you can't even just be like, hey, I'm down the street, I'm coming to get you. Like Preston calls and like, hey, I'm down the road, come pick me up. And then you get there, he's just gone.
I mean, at what point would the drugs start to kick in, and what happened that got him? Because he obviously wasn't...
I think that shit works fast because guys do that to women in bars all the time. It has to be quick acting. Because
so did they scoop him up and put him in a car?
Maybe that's why he said he was tired and feeling weird and he wanted to go home.
Yeah, that's probably why.
Because a period, I don't know how long how long is a period in hockey, you guys?
It was like 15 minutes or so, but then, you know, you've got a bunch of pauses. And
I've had an edible that kicked in 15 minutes, so like,
yeah,
I've had a real
true.
strong drink that kicked in pretty quick, so like, but that's crazy that you can't even like, and you know they make like different things you can put in your drinks and stuff, like, and like little straws or sticks. Or
They had even
stuff.
made a nail polish at one point that you can stick it in.
It'll change. Yeah,
it'll change color, but
it's so sad we have to have these things.
I know.
Can we just not drug and kill each other?
I know.
Can we just not?
I'm so nervous to leave a drink in anywhere. Like whenever I'm out with my friends, I'm like, watch my drink, just watch it, or I'll take it
I
with
got
me.
to the point like on first dates and stuff like that. Like if you're going to order a drink, I would always make sure like if I need to pee, I need to do it now because like I'm not leaving my cup. So,
Right.
like
Yeah.
I'm sure you're a very nice dude, but like let me go pee real quick and then I'll come back.
That's
and order
how
a
all
drink.
those stories start out. Is I met a guy and
Yeah.
he seemed normal.
He seemed normal.
And then I woke
Ted
up.
Bundy.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. My next one is actually a couple that disappeared, which is really weird.
That's
but it
strange.
happened in 1928, so there were no forensics. There was nothing at the time. This is
Just like rub dirt on a crime scene and hope for the best.
and hope for the best. That's kind of how this one was.
Fingerprinted everything.
Yeah.
Covered it in dust.
I was going to talk about Glenn and Bessie Hyde, and they were newlyweds back
Okay.
in 1928. They were the last time they were seen was on November 18th that year. They were newlyweds that decided that they were going to go on an adventure trip for their honeymoon.
Okay.
And they're going to go what they call river running, which is
I know this one.
Yeah.
I know this one. I just listened to something about this.
it's a crazy one. They decide they're going to go river running through the Grand Canyon, which for those who don't know, they're basically floating the river on this boat. Glenn was a more experienced river runner, having spent time doing it a couple of years earlier, and he loved it. Bessie was not experienced, but
I would not want to do that for my honeymoon if I had not been and gone and done it before.
This is 1928, though. You're coming.
Like, what else are you gonna do?
It's the Depression era. It's they don't probably have a whole lot of money, but they can do this.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be like a month-long trip, too. Like it takes a while to go through there. But
All
Glenn,
thing is a month peeing in the woods, being stung by mosquitoes.
I know.
That does not.
But a lot of people still didn't have indoor plumbing back in the 20s, so.
So you're squatting in the woods
So
anyway.
you're squatting in the woods anyway. Glenn had built his own boat, which is also you'd think is the reason why they went missing, but it was a 20-foot flat bottom wooden boat called they call them a scow, I think is
Okay.
the term for it. Flat bottom boat, pretty big. He was wanting to beat the speed record for traveling down the Green and Colorado rivers. And Bessie was up for an adventure trip, namely because she would be the first woman to do it.
I can see that.
So
I would
she's
want to be
like,
the first one to do something.
so she's like, let's do it. But here's the thing. They refused to take life jackets, even though they were warned by seasoned river runners who told them the boat wouldn't make the trip.
Just bring the life jackets.
Right.
Just bring them.
Just bring them.
Even if you don't want to wear it, have it, because you don't know.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's rapids. And
What if a goddamn bear
Right.
jumps out of the woods and jumps on your
you
boat?
need, you need something to throw at them. A life jacket would distract them.
I would
just
grab
enough.
it and jump. You don't know. What if your boat catches on fire?
Yeah, exactly.
In the water.
In the water. That would be my luck.
That's happened to me.
Oh, a story that I can talk about, though, while we're talking about boats, is one time I went out on Cisco Lake, which is just west of here. My grandpa and my dad and me and my uncle and a cousin were all on this boat, and it dies. And then a tornado comes through, and the tornado went across the lake, and we're in the middle of this boat just hanging on.
This is why we're friends, because when I was a kid, I was like, I don't know, 10 or 12, something.
Uh-huh.
My dad had just bought this boat. My dad's notorious for buying things and fixing them up. And so he bought this boat, fixed it up, and we took it to, I think it was Possum Kingdom Lake here in Texas. And we get out in the middle of the goddamn lake, and the motor catches on fire. Explodes. And where is Tara sitting? By the motor. My hair goes
Oh my God.
It didn't set my whole head on fire, but surface hair was all
Yeah.
And so my dad's like, get out. So it was me, my cousin Shannon, who's 5 years older, and my sister, who is 4 years younger than I am. So if I was 12, she's little.
Little.
So we jumped in the water, and we have a guest.
Oh, hi, Bubba. Hey, Bubba. Preston.
So we jump in the water, and we're swimming across. We went to swim across the lake, and my fat roly-poly ass trying to swim across the lake, and my sister can't swim across for whatever reason. She can't swim across the lake, so she's holding onto Shannon's neck, and then she's holding onto my neck. Like, we're taking turns. And my dad will not leave the boat. He's still out there trying to put the boat out. Like, my mom's like, he's gonna burn up. We're all just standing there on the shore watching my dad fight fire in the middle of the lake. Like, just get off.
I know when we were
My boat story.
we're stuck there. It's raining. We
It's
take
a shame
off.
our dads never met, because they would have been.
They would have been fast friends. Fast friends. So,
Anyway,
but
back to these poor people.
back to these poor people. Where was I? So they, like I said, that they refused their life jackets, and they set out on their adventure on October 20th, 1928, and they came across a photographer named Emery Kolb, who lived in the area. He was a photographer, like I said, so he was always doing landscape and photography in there. And they said, "Hey, can you take our pictures to commemorate this?" Because nobody had cameras in 1928. And so he took their picture, and they set off again from there. It was like only 2 days before they went missing that he took the picture. So that was the last time anybody had seen them alive, allegedly, So they had been adventuring for about a month, and there was another tourist in the area. I think his name was Adolph Sutro. He sees them on November 18th. So he was technically the last person to see them, but the photographer was the last to document anything. And in December, when everybody realized they didn't turn up when they were supposed to, a search party was dispatched. And they found their boat, and it was near perfect shape with all of their belongings still strapped in it at River Mile 237. Then they found a campsite a few miles down, around mile 225, but they have no idea what happened in the 12 miles on the river. No idea. They just found their boat untouched. And that's it. They were gone. Nobody could find them. So 43 years later, in 1971, there's a commercial rafting group that stops near where their boat was found. This is where it gets crazy. This commercial group were sitting around a campfire, and the leader of the group, the person who put it together, whatever, he tells the story of the couple that disappeared, 40 years earlier. And an older woman by the name of Georgie Clark, who's sitting there around the campfire, says, "I'm Bessie Hyde." And everybody's like, "What? Prove it."
What?
So she starts telling the story. She claimed that she stabbed her husband, Glenn, after they got into a fight. He was getting abusive, and she wanted to leave because she felt that the trip had become too dangerous.
He had it coming.
Right?
Anyone? Chicago?
He said that he got abusive, began to beat her, so she grabbed a knife and stabbed him. And she said everything so matter-of-factly that everyone around the campfire believed her.
Could you imagine that? You're on vacation and it's like...
Yeah, and
like I've got
a confession. I killed my husband.
Like, I am a missing person, and also I killed my husband.
Like,
cool.
Right. After the trip, one of the men found her phone number and was like, "Hey, I want to do an interview with you. And I want to hear your story." And then she denies, "I never said anything about that. That's not me. I'm not really. I just made that story up." Now, there are some accounts that said that she was a professor at some prestigious college. I can't remember which one it was. But she was like a psych major or teacher or a sociology, something like that. And she always did little social experiments like that to see how people would react. Now,
okay,
I couldn't,
ma'am, that's not funny.
Right, I couldn't confirm that story. It was a little blip in one of the stories, one of the articles I was reading. So I don't know how true that is. But after she passed away, her best friends went to go clean out her home. And they wanted to look for clues because she had told them that she was Bessie Hyde as well, and would never have any proof of it.
Don't tell people this if you're not actually Bessie Hyde. Don't tell people.
Don't tell people that.
And they won't be looking through your shit when you die.
Right. Well, they go through all of her stuff, and when they found some weird stuff, she had a birth certificate that said her real name was Bessie DeRoss, and they also found a marriage certificate of Bessie and Glenn Hyde. So.
I mean, you can get a marriage certificate I guess you can get a copy of someone's if you really want it. Can you get someone else's?
Or
back
you
in
could
the
fake
marriage?
it. I mean,
I guess you could.
I don't know.
I mean, it was back in olden days.
They did find a pistol among her stuff. And these pieces of evidence were enough for some people to believe that she had been telling the truth, but all the photographs of Georgie when she was younger look drastically different than Bessie Hyde, so they don't even look alike. And the friends were like, they're not the same person. They don't look alike. So the question is, was Georgie Clark so deep in her lies that she had fake birth and marriage certificates, or did she take them from their boat, perhaps?
Maybe she was just there.
She found their stuff and then took off with it.
Maybe she killed them.
Or did she murder the two of them and take their stuff? Or, whatever. And so it's thought that she may have been disappointed that she accomplished as much as the couple did, but she didn't want Bessie to be the first woman to do it. So if she was out there trying to complete her own run,
and she's like, who is this lady?
And who is this?
With a husband and help. Well,
yeah.
That's not fair.
That's not fair. So I'm going to take him out. That's one thing. She may have just been jealous that she didn't get any recognition. But then when the photographer, Emery Kolb, passed away in the 70s, later in the 70s, relatives were cleaning out his house. They found a complete skeleton of a human man laying in a canoe in his boathouse. So,
Sir, can you not have a dead person in your boat in your that's...
Yeah. So this is the early days of forensic investigation too, because it's in the 70s.
Yeah.
So they were able to determine that the skeleton was a white man who was over 6 foot tall and was killed by a single bullet to the head. They decided, or they thought, maybe we found Glenn Hyde. The newspapers even started to report the story. They found his body. And then they started speculating on what happened. But when scientists actually compared the photographs to the skull and started doing their forensics and rebuilding the skull, it wasn't him. It didn't have the same facial structure.
Who did he have in his boat?
That's another and he's dead, so nobody can ask him anything.
That's so weird.
Isn't that so weird? So
I
the
hope
body.
I never find any of this crap in my parents' house.
Right? No kidding.
Mom, Dad, if you have a dead person in your house, can you please get rid of it before I have to clear everything out?
So, some people still believe that he killed Glenn, and that his motive was that he fell in love with Bessie because they had
maybe they were in on it together.
And so he wanted her so bad that he killed Glenn. But people who knew him was like, no way, he would have never killed anybody.
I've never met someone who was such like a hot piece that I was like, well, better kill your spouse.
Especially since they only spent maybe a day together.
Together.
And so...
and she stinks. They're like out on the boat. It's all stinky and sweaty.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess you could douche off in the river whenever you want, but...
I am a firm believer that everyone stunk back in 1928.
Yeah, and everybody was... Yeah. And so everybody was, stupefied because they're like, where did he get this body? He had a literal skeleton in his closet, They're like, who is... They never even discovered who that man was.
Could you imagine making that joke and then you open the closet and it's like...
Oh, man. So the most plausible theory is the one that they fell in. One of them may have fell in. The other one went to go save them, and they were swept away, eaten by fish.
They would have survived if they would have brought
had life jackets. But
even the shitty ones that just go around your neck,
anything. So that's the only thing that they can come up with, is that they just got swept away by the current. They jumped out of the boat for whatever reason.
I don't think anyone deserves bad things happening to them, but if you are not prepared and bad things happen, guess what? You should have been prepared.
Safety first. Did we not learn that in elementary school?
Girl Scout.
Girl Scout.
I was a Girl Scout. This last one's gonna rile me up big time. Especially because earlier before we were recording, we were talking about the fact that there was just mass shooting that happened yesterday in Buffalo.
Yeah.
I freaking hate crime because teenagers are the worst, and that's what happened.
Excuse me.
This is in Florida. Sorry, Florida. Keep trying to get away from you, but
you guys got some problems.
Y'all gotta get it together. I got faith in you. Come on, guys.
Come on. There's good people there. Spread it.
January 12th, 2004, 27-year-old Terrence Williams, he's a black man, went missing in Naples, Florida. I said, in my notes I got my fucking eye on you, Florida. He was a father of 4, and he moved to Florida to be near his mom, Marcia. Marcia? I can't remember if it's Marcia or Marcia. Because he was mama's boy, and he wanted to be close to his mom. And he was working at a Pizza Hut at the time, like, trying to make money. And he had his license taken away for DUIs or something. Like, he'd had his license taken away. So no license. He's having to bum rides back and forth. And at some point, he falls in love with this, like, beat-up old Cadillac. And he'd always wanted a Cadillac. So he bought the Cadillac, even knowing he doesn't have a license. He bought it anyways. And his roommate spoke to him the night before, so January 11th, before bed. They talked on the phone. And he said he's trying to get his roommate to come out. He said he's going to a couple of parties. He had just got this car. And he's like, nah, dude, I'm not going out tonight. And so Terrence had to go out by himself. When he didn't return home the next day, his roommate emailed his mom? Like, it's 2004. Why don't you send a fucking smoke signal?
Right.
Like, beep, 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 beep. Whatever. So yeah, on January 13th, he got a hold of Terrence's mother and let her know. His family called the authorities, and they tracked his car down because it had been towed from the Naples Memorial Cemetery. So it had been towed. And the report was signed by Deputy Steve Calkins.
Okay.
Of the Collier County Sheriff's Department. But it turns out he never filed a report or an arrest report.
Okay. So it was was it abandoned? I'm assuming it's abandoned. So do they know if...
we'll get into it.
Okay, go ahead.
The mother, Miss Marcia, is a down bitch because she contacted the cemetery workers and have you guys seen anything? And they said they saw Terrence getting pulled over by a police officer.
Oh.
And he says he has no memory of pulling anybody over. Because she's calling the police department. You can hear, like, there's calls out there where she is calling the police department. And the police department, they're so sick of hearing from her. They're calling Deputy Calkins and saying, this lady won't leave us alone. She is a hysterical woman. We don't know what's wrong with her.
Of course.
And he made some very derogatory comments about black people and cars and how they always drive pieces of shit and blah, blah, blah. Making some really shitty comments. Recording over the phone. You can hear it. A few days later, his supervisors talked to him, and now he's changed and made him file an incident report. Now he says he has come into contact with Terrence around noon. He said Terrence asked him for a ride to the Circle K, which his family says he would never do because he was scared of cops. So he would never ask. I don't know any black man in the South who's going to ask to get in a police car.
Yeah, no kidding.
Know?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Absolutely not. Surveillance at the Circle K does not support his claims. No, there's no video surveillance of him ever being there or of the police officer ever being there. So his mom files a complaint against the police officer.
And that's all she can do because
that's all you can do.
Your hands are tied.
And he has never been seen again. And it turns out this isn't the first time Deputy Dipshit Steve Calkins did not follow protocol and another brown man had gone missing because October 2003, Felipe Santos, an illegal Mexican immigrant, was involved in a minor car accident and was last seen driving away with Deputy Steve Calkins. And his boss called to bail him out because he saw him get arrested, so he called to bail him out, and they had no record of him ever being there. Had no record of an arrest or anything. Like, never, the police officer didn't say he ever picked him up.
Crook. Oh my gosh. And so he continued to be on the police force, or was he let go?
He did. I think eventually he retired, I think. But, like, yeah, he was there for a while.
He retired. So he got full pension, and he got... What a piece of shit.
Yes.
And there was no...
So these families, like, Felipe Santos, he was here making money for his family. Like, he was sending all his money back. He was like, working construction or something. He was, like, sending all of his money back. He was just trying to work.
Right.
He got into a minor car accident, and it had been on record, or a lot of the other police officers felt uncomfortable because of the fact that it was pretty well known that Steve Calkins was not okay with immigrants. He didn't like black people. He didn't like anyone of color. No one ever had insurance. Like, these people all driving pieces of crap. Blah, 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 blah.
Well, yeah. You hear that all the time from all the rednecks that we live around. You do hear that all the time.
And it's just... It's so scary.
So they should disappear. Let's just get rid of them.
Just disappear them. Like...
That's nuts. That's nuts that there was no full
And Terrence
investigation.
Williams was young, and he had 4 kids.
That's so
And
sad.
now he's just gone.
He's just gone.
No.
And there's no closure.
Nope, nothing.
There's nothing.
And it's so sad when it's the police department who has done this, because
Yeah.
then who do you go to? Who do you call? What do you do? You know?
Because growing up as a white kid, it was always like, find a police officer if you
trust
ever
the cops.
The
Police will
cops
help
will,
you.
Yeah, look for the uniform. They'll help.
No, they won't. They're gonna drive your ass to the middle of nowhere and kill you.
No
and
wonder people
no one
of color
will ever find you.
No wonder people of color are so afraid of the police.
Yeah, it's so scary. It's very different. Like, especially now that like super hot boyfriend is black, and so like we talk about racial stuff a lot, and it's like his version of things or my version of things are very different.
Well,
like,
yeah.
Like, it's just crazy to think that like I can go and do pretty much anything I want, go anywhere I want, say anything I want, do anything I want.
Wave at police.
Wave at police or give them the finger. What are they gonna do?
Yeah.
I'm a white woman. They ain't gonna do anything to me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
it's the
exactly.
complete opposite for him.
Yeah.
It's just so crazy. Like, should he have been driving without a license? No. But, like, give him a ticket and whatever.
Give him a
Like,
ticket.
Take
him
the
off
car away.
Take him to the station and make him, go through the process.
Go through
that
the process.
way.
Make his mom come get him.
Yeah.
You know. She's gonna yell at him anyway. So,
Yeah.
like,
That's so
It's
horrible.
insane.
It's insane. Boy, they
So, I don't know if that guy's still alive, but a big F you to that guy.
Yeah.
'Cause
special
I'm on
place
to you,
in hell.
sir. Yep.
Special place in hell for those guys. Mine, I'm gonna take back again to the way back when, because
The Wayback Machine.
well, and it's like you said earlier, because when people go missing now, they don't always stay missing because we have forensics and we have our cameras everywhere. So these really poked out to me is because they don't have a way to forensically track down the people that are missing. And this is a whole family of kids that went missing. I've also seen these guys in a few documentaries here, and they're I didn't even write down all of their names because there were so many kids that were lost.
There's like 90 kids in that family.
They had 10 kids, and I think that 5 of them
Probably took them like a week to realize there was some missing.
right.
Like,
Well, and that one's gone too.
bad joke. Such a bad joke. Children don't need to be missing. I'm so
no,
sorry.
no. But this was the Sauter children, the children of George and Jenny Sauter. They've been missing since Christmas Eve, 1945. From Christmas Eve. George and Jenny were Italian immigrants that had 10 children, like I just mentioned. On December 24th, 1945, the Sauter family, after taking care of their livestock, they had a farm. They came in, opened a few gifts that they had just bought at the dollar store. The local, not even dollar store, the Five and Dime, that I think one of the kids worked at the Five and Dime. And so they were excited because they all had gifts that year, and some years they didn't.
Right. I mean, we got
So,
10 kids and
got
grown
10
up in
kids.
the Depression. And
Exactly. So around 12:30 that night, after they went to bed, they get this weird phone call. And it ended up being a wrong number, but it was from a woman who was giggling and laughing, asked for somebody who wasn't there. They could hear glasses clinking in the background, so they just figured it was a wrong number.
Christmas party.
From a Christmas party. The woman was probably a little drunk and misdialed, whatever. And then they go back to bed. Half an hour later, they wake up again and smelled smoke, and then there was smoke coming into the bedrooms, and they discovered their house was on fire. And it looked like that the fire started in the office near the telephone and the inside electrical breaker box. And so...
Because it was the 20s. Like, things were probably wired like...
Well, this is in 45.
Oh, 45.
Yeah.
Things were probably not wired the best way.
Well, and here's the thing.
Electricity's fairly new at this point.
Right. Well, especially electricity inside the homes. It was becoming more popular by then anyway. So they tried to get everybody out of the house. And George and Jenny had made it out with 4 of the kids. One of their kids, I think it was their second oldest, he was off in the military fighting in World War II.
Yeah,
at this
I remember
time.
he was not there. Yeah.
And so he's not there. But they get 4 out, and they're like, 5 of them are still stuck upstairs. So George goes to rescue them. Dad's going to come to the rescue. He goes to get his ladder. His ladder is missing. So he says the next best thing he does, he has a couple of coal trucks. He goes to go get the coal truck to pull it up to the house, and then climb into the second floor that way. Neither one of his trucks would start. They had been messed with. They don't know who messed with it. So he just starts climbing. He didn't have his shoes on. He didn't have anything up. He just starts climbing up the side of the house. When your kids are
up there, you just climb the house like a damn monkey.
Right, like a spider monkey. And so he gets up there. He breaks a window, slices himself up trying to get in through the window in a hurry. Gets up there, can't find them. and the smoke is getting to him.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I'm no good dead. So he crawls back out and goes down, and they can't find him. And they're just horrified. They don't know where their kids are. They don't know where they are in the house. They don't know where they're suffering. Are they in the closet hiding? Did they make it downstairs? They don't know. So none of the 5 children that were up there were ever found again. Ginny, in the meantime, while he's trying to get into the house, calls the fire department, and nobody picks up. So she runs to a neighbor's house, which they're on a farm.
So it takes like 20 miles. You're running 3 miles down the road.
So she goes to the neighbor's house. They call the fire department. It still can't get a response. So, well, actually, I think it was whenever, like I said, their phone had been knocked out because of the fire. She had to run to the neighbor's house to call the fire department. Got no response. So another neighbor takes off. And
like, why was 911 just not always a thing?
Not always a thing, right?
We're always going to need emergency assistance because obviously if we're calling the police, it's an emergency.
It's an emergency. So another neighbor goes and finds the fire chief. The fire chief, they have like this call chain where you call the next firefighter and they call the next one. And so the
longest possible way of getting help ever.
Yeah, they called the fire department at 2 a.m. The fire had been blazing for about 45 minutes to an hour. They call them, finally get a hold of them, and it takes until 8 a.m. to get there. And by then the house...
Your whole house is gone. Thanks a lot, fire department.
Right. So the house actually went down in about 45 minutes. It didn't take an hour.
That's why you need 911, so you can get there in 2 minutes, so maybe you can save your house.
So once they got it cooled off and they were able to examine everything, they found 0 remains in the house. And which is weird that you would think, okay, maybe they burned up to ash. But the thing about cremating a body is it has to burn
it's got to burn for
2,000 degrees for 2 hours, I think. Well, the house was only on fire for 45 minutes, and it did not. A house fire is not 2,000 degrees.
Something. Yeah, no.
So they said you would find charred bones, you would find anything, but you're not going to find just ashes. And so they didn't find anything. The investigators conclude that the wiring was faulty. But here's where the weird stuff comes in. Like it sounds like the wiring caused a fire. 5 kids died in the house. It's a tragedy. But the investigators come in, and they start remembering things that had happened over the last couple months. And a few months before, a drifter came to the house looking for work. And he mentioned that the fuse box was suspect and would cause a fire. So they had the power company come out and look at it and said, no, this is fine. Everything's fine.
The drifter said that?
The drifter said that the box was...
you poking around my fuse box?
Right,
go home.
Right. Well, apparently there was an outside one and an inside one. And so he looked at the one on the outside.
I'm telling the drifter to go home. Hey, drift home.
Drifter, go home. Go drift.
Drift somewhere else.
And so the power company come out, looked at it, said it was fine. About the same time, an insurance salesman came by and told the Sodders that they're a target in the community because they were Italian immigrants, and they were very outspoken against Mussolini.
Can I just say that, like, we're all immigrants here?
Mm-hmm.
Like, unless you are Native American and indigenous people who grew up and were raised and were bred and everything here, like, none of us are from here.
Right.
Stop acting like you own the place.
Right. Well, and it wasn't even the people that were, it was the other Italian immigrants that had something against them because they didn't like Mussolini. They would always speak out against Mussolini, and then so...
He was not great.
He wasn't great, and so the insurance guy says, you may find yourself attacked in because of your beliefs.
You better get some insurance.
So you better get some insurance. And they were like, we can't afford it, so go on your way. And
I'd be like putting a sign outside my door. Can you weird people stop stopping by my house?
Right. And so the salesman, he becomes irate and warns them that their house is going to go up in smoke and your family's going to die. So, and then he goes off on his way. Not a good look.
Salesman.
And then Jenny remembered that whenever she was dozing off after the phone rang that night, she was dozing off and she heard something hit the roof and roll off, but she didn't stir enough because it could have been a squirrel rolling down. It could have been, she just didn't think about it. Just a weird noise.
You don't think, oh my God, someone's cutting my phone lines and messing with my truck. I'm going to burn my house down.
Right. And so she's like, it could have been, a squirrel that jumped up there and ran its way down. Just sounded like it was rolling because it's quiet in the house. Yeah. And so she goes off to sleep. And then about half an hour after she falls asleep, the smoke the smoke starts filling her room. They also discovered that after the fire, the phone lines had been cut and not burned.
Yep.
So somebody
Someone
did
did
this.
that on purpose.
But in the end, it was ruled a faulty electrical box. But they were trying to explain, no, whenever the fire started, the lights were on. So if it had started a fire, it would have tripped the breaker and there would have been no lights. But our electricity was on when the fire started. So there's no, when we left the house, the lights were on.
And I think that someone who's going to do this might know how to make it look like
Right.
faulty something. Unless you're maybe one of the million firemen who are on this phone call chain.
Uh-huh.
And maybe you're the one who's starting the fire.
Well, they also found a hard rubber object in the yard when they were investigating that was possibly used like in wartime for napalm bombs. That's and that's what she thinks there, but it didn't explode on the roof.
So
but
they
it
had
could
to
have.
go.
They may have had something else, or maybe even had another bomb. But that's what they think hit the roof and rolled, and it didn't explode like a Molotov cocktail, sort of like that. Whenever they let's see, where am I at here? So the kids are missing. Then the reports started coming up of sightings of these kids. Like one woman claimed that she had seen the missing children.
Because you're going to notice 5 kids.
Yeah. One woman claimed she'd seen the missing children like in a car peering out the window during the fire, going away from the fire. One woman said that she saw that. Another woman that operated a tourist stop about 50 miles west of Fayetteville said that she saw the children the morning after the fire and said, I served them breakfast. Quote, there was a car with Florida license plates at the tourist court too. So one woman said that she saw the 5 kids. And then there was a woman at a Charleston hotel that says she saw the children's photo in the newspaper and she had seen 4 of the 5 a week after the fire, and they were accompanied by 2 women, 2 men, all of Italian descent. So those were the she actually had a statement that said, I don't remember the exact date they stayed. However, the entire party did register at the hotel. They stayed in a large room with several beds. They registered about midnight. I tried to talk to the children in a friendly manner, but the men appeared hostile, refused to allow me to talk to the children. One of the men looked at me in a hostile manner. He turned around and began talking rapidly in Italian. Immediately, the whole party stopped talking to me. I sensed that I was being frozen out. So I said nothing more. They left early the next morning. So the Sodders, at this point, hire a private investigator named C.C. Tinsley to look into the case.
Which they probably had to scrimp and save because they don't have a house.
They don't have a house.
They didn't have money for insurance.
They have no money.
They're not rich people.
So he informed the family that the insurance salesman who had threatened George over his anti-Mussolini sentiments, he had been on the coroner's jury that ruled the fire an accident.
That seems like a conflict of interest.
That's very suspect, isn't it? The Smithsonian held 2 hearings at the Capitol in Charleston. And the Governor Patterson at the time and the state police told the Sodders that their search was hopeless and declared the case closed. It's just a cold case. We'll never know if they burned up or not. So George and Jenny erected a billboard along Route 16 and passed out flyers. Then they offered a $5,000 reward for information leading to their children. And then they increased the amount to $10,000. So you have everybody showing up with tips again.
Bad tips.
So a letter arrives from a woman in St. Louis saying that the oldest girl, I think her name was Martha, was in a convent there. And another tip come from Texas, where a patron in a bar overheard a conversation about a long ago Christmas Eve fire in West Virginia. So, someone in Florida claimed the children were staying with a distant relative. But George investigated every lead he could.
Well, and these kids, like, if they're being somewhere, they would probably try and find some kind of way to be like, hey, I am one of the Soder children, please help me. Like,
right. Well, in 1968, which is 20 years after the fire, more than 20 years, Jenny gets something in the mail and found an envelope addressed only to her. And when she opens it, it was postmarked from Kentucky and had no return address. And inside was a photo of a man in his mid-20s. And on the back, there was a handwritten note that read, Lewis Sauter, I love brother Frankie, little boys. And that's all that it says. And so her and George are looking at it and are like, this man looks a lot like Louis, who was 9 at the time of the fire. And beyond, but they both had dark curly hair, dark brown eyes, had the same straight nose, the same upward tilt of the eyebrow, everything kind of.
Yeah.
So they hire a private detective, send him to Kentucky, and then the private detective disappears. They can't find anything he just leaves. And that was really the last clue that they got. They never gave up looking until their dying day, and the remaining children continued to look for him even after their parents were gone.
I cannot imagine, like what's worse, like your children die in a fire or your children disappeared and God knows what happened to them. Mm-hmm. And hopefully they're alive. Probably not. Mm-hmm. But
and so,
and you just never know.
And so some of the stuff that I didn't write down that I thought was interesting, though, was like Jenny would burn like animal carcasses and stuff like that to try to see if she could recreate the fire.
Yeah.
And she said the most I could ever come up with was some charred remains, maybe bones.
Yeah.
But there was always something left over. And I also heard I read one of the investigators, to try to give them closure, had planted a heart on the property, and then when they found it, they sent it to the coroner, and the coroner was like, this is a beef liver. It's not a heart. It's not a human heart. So, and then another time, supposedly they had found some vertebrae on the property that seemed like it was charred, but it didn't match the ages of any of the kids. It seemed to belong to an older person. So they just never came up with any hard evidence. They found, a few vertebrae and then didn't find anything else. Like just
that reminds me of, I just looked it up, Lori Bible and Ashley Freeman. Do you know that case of like the two girls that like they were having a slumber party for one of the girls' house at like the trailer house, and it burned down. There was a fire.
It seems familiar.
And they found the parents. One of the girls' parents were dead inside, and they could not find the girls anywhere. And then they turned and looked again, and they couldn't find any remains. And so they thought that like, oh my gosh, the parents ran off with like,
right,
with the kids, and where are they? And then it turns out one of the other parents were like visiting the scene or whatever. I don't know how they freaking got there. Like, no one's marking this off, but the parents looking around for evidence found the remains of the parents. They thought that there was like professionals were looking and could not find remains, but then they're like, there it is. Like,
there it is.
And then it was like burned remains of the adults, and the kids are still missing. Like, they don't know what happened to them. But like, so I don't know if like, were they really looking? Like, maybe there was like, because if you're not really looking for, if it's like 1940s, like how smart are you really? Like when you're looking at for evidence and like,
I don't know. I think maybe the kids were taken though, because like the ladder was missing.
God, kidnapping 5 kids though, that sounds miserable.
I don't know, unless it was somebody trying to teach them a lesson because they lived in an Italian immigrant community. And
I wonder if those 5 kids were like singled out specifically, or if it's just like snag as many as you can get, or
because apparently the ones that survived were ones that had fallen asleep downstairs. Like one of them was asleep on the couch, another one was
like maybe they all would have been taken if they were.
They could have,
but how do you that from upstairs though is like, we just throw them out the window, like with the ladder, and then you take the ladder,
take them out one at a time down a ladder. And I
a lot.
I think that like some of them were like
little.
Some were little, and some were like close to teenagers, if not teenagers. I should have written all that down, but there were just so many kids.
And like, could they maybe have gotten out and then run off and something bad happened to them?
Right.
I don't know.
We'll never know.
God, I hate this.
I know.
Why do we do this?
I don't know. Because I
did read too. While you were talking, very rude, but Deputy Steve Calkins was fired from the police department. So
good. Well, he was fired.
He was fired. So for apparently not filling out reports and not admitting to killing people when you have killed somebody.
Well, I guess it could have been worse.
Missing people, you guys. Don't go missing.
People, don't. Stay with your friends.
If you've seen any of these people or you know anything,
Yeah, I'm sure I don't have the crime hotline, but
Give a shout out to someone.
give a shout out. You know what? You can email us, and then we'll pass on the information.
Courtney will email me, and
I
then
will
I will
email.
email the next podcaster, and we'll just keep going
We'll
from
just
there.
keep talking. We'll solve it all through
like
the
olden days.
just like the old days. Oh, the old days where you
Oh,
could
the
disappear.
old days. You guys.
Well,
Missing people.
kind of a bummer.
Kind of a bummer.
It's
Kind
really
of a
hard
bummer.
to brand ourselves as a comedy podcast whenever
We do the best we can.
we do the best.
We do the best we can, you guys. Yeah, please
So-
like, subscribe.
Yeah, tell your friends and share.
Tell your friends, share us, even if you hate us.
Even if you hate us,
send
say,
us to someone as a punishment.
yeah, get a load of these guys.
Well, these
Look at
idiots.
these idiots. So anyway, but it's good to see you guys. Thanks for
Good to see
listening.
you.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time. Be
Bye.
safe.
Let me call you sweetheart.